Well, good morning, fellow philosophers. It's another great day of sobriety. I hope you all are having a great morning and that you're starting your day bright eyed and bushy tailed. Excuse me. And ready to get a lot accomplished, keep your emotions controlled, your desires in the right places, and definitely prepared for any triggers that could lead you to a relapse. I wanted to talk today about a little bit about my past and about what recently happened related to that. So, I used to be a medical marijuana specialist. I had a cannabis problem the entire time, and instead of admitting to myself that I had a problem, told I just went I tried to prove to the world that that marijuana was actually good for everybody. And since I'm a physician, I did that by becoming this marijuana specialist. I wrote a book about it. I was preaching about it online, on YouTube, writing articles and blogs, and teaching about how it was a great medicine. And eventually, I ended up suing the government for my Second Amendment rights. And because in America, you can't buy a gun if you're a medical marijuana patient, but you can buy a gun if you're medically treated with, say, benzodiazepines or something else like that. And so we believed that we could get this drug approved federally by arguing to the Supreme Court, not that it got that far, that you should be allowed to buy a gun if you're a medical marijuana patient. And when I did that, the medical board in Pennsylvania came after me hard and they said that I had a medical marijuana problem. And eventually my license got suspended and I had to work my ass off to get my medical license back, which it's back now, and I'm happily practicing. And during that whole process, I had all sorts of things fall out of order and be canceled that I had to work to get back. So, for example, my board certification in internal medicine was taken away, and I had to take my board exams again to pass it, which I did, and I got it back. Then my license got suspended, and I had to work my butt off to get that back. My DEA license got suspended, and I had to do whatever the DEA wanted me to do to get that back. And slowly I worked and got everything returned back to me except one thing. And that was my my ability to certify patients for medical marijuana cards in Pennsylvania. I wanted to really reverse everything that had happened to me, so then if I wanted to not do that, I could pull out on my own terms. So I applied to the medical marijuana program after I got my license back, and the medical marijuana office, they denied me from doing that, and they said that I wasn't allowed. And so I appealed because excuse me, because I had a fully unrestricted license, so there should be nothing blocking me from having all the privileges of another physician. And I appealed their decision. And so they got an attorney, and I had to argue with a mediator who was essentially a judge. And we had it was like an informal court proceedings that I had to go through. And the medical marijuana office, they and their attorney had a really lame argument. And because, for one, they said I had a problem, which I was sober about. I've been sober for years, so clearly I didn't have a problem anymore with cannabis. But then the other thing is that I told them that I didn't even want to approve people for medical marijuana anymore, but I just wanted to reverse everything. So, and I wanted to have the privileges in case I ever did want to give somebody a medical marijuana card, because I did feel that there were rare circumstances when medical marijuana could actually be useful still. And what the medical marijuana office and their attorney were arguing is that I shouldn't be allowed to approve people for marijuana cards because I would not approve patients for marijuana cards. And they were pretty much saying I should be approving everybody, but since my attitude was that I didn't think it was as useful of a medication as I used to think, that I was going to be too strict with my privileges, and therefore I shouldn't have privileges to approve people, which made zero sense. I mean, how does that make any sense at all? First of all, it's like, do I have to approve everyone? And the judge himself was like, wait, are you saying he has to approve everybody? And then two, by not allowing me the privileges, then I can't approve anyone. At least if I'm given the privileges, I can approve some people, even if it's not everybody. So anyway, the whole thing didn't make any sense. And the mediator eventually said that he agreed with me in that because my license was unrestricted, I had done everything I had to do to be working in full capacity as a doctor, and my beliefs didn't seem to be incorrect about anything. Therefore, I should be allowed to be on the medical marijuana physician registry in Pennsylvania. So I thought that was it, and I was allowed to be on the registry. And but it actually wasn't. That wasn't the final. That wasn't the final conclusion. The final conclusion had to be made by, like, I guess, the Surgeon General of Pennsylvania, or like the health director, whoever's like at the top in Pennsylvania for healthcare for the government. So all the paperwork and the legal documents went to that person, and I waited. And I waited a long time, and like 2 years had gone by. There was an article written about me. I did an interview with some journalist, and he asked me about the whole situation because he found it interesting that I wasn't being allowed to do it. And even though, like, the marijuana, basically, he found the battle between me and the marijuana program an interesting thing to write an article about. So I talked to him, and there was an article written about it. And if, eventually I got a little impatient, and I'm like, it was 2 years had gone by. And so I sent a message to the state of Pennsylvania, and I said, hey, what is going on here? I've been waiting and waiting. And it turned out that they made the conclusion, but they sent the paperwork to my old address. I had moved since then, so I never got it. And so they emailed me it as an attachment, and I was approved. And I just found this out like a couple weeks ago. They allowed me. So now the marijuana office, the medical marijuana office, has to let me be part of the physician registry. The thing about that is that I don't want to approve people for marijuana cards anyway. That's the old me, and I'm a new person now, and I really don't want anything to do with that stuff. As I'm speaking, I'm driving by a dispensary, and it just says in big letters, medical marijuana. And it's so lame. The parking lot's pretty much always empty. And anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm not interested in approving people anymore because I don't think medical marijuana is really that useful. it has this one side effect that's really annoying. It gets you high all the time. Every time you use it for medical purposes, you're going to be stoned. That's not a good medication. That's a serious side effect. And it's uncomfortable. Feeling high from weed doesn't even feel good. The first time I did it when I was a teenager, I had a panic attack and I hid it under my blanket and prayed to God that I would fall asleep soon and hopefully wake up in the morning. It was scary. And I have had multiple near panic attacks from anxiety from being high in the past. And a lot of people get that feeling and it causes anxiety. Somehow we're supposed to use it for anxiety, but it actually causes anxiety. And even once you get used to the side effects, it still like dumbs you down. You're not working at your 100% capacity. You could probably do some things functioning, but you can't do the best things and the things that require the most brain power. You could probably clean your house, but you're going to have trouble doing your taxes. So it's just not a good medication. I think it is a good medication if it's like an end of life situation, somebody's dying from cancer, they're in a lot of pain. That could actually potentially be a useful medication in that situation. But for most problems, either it doesn't even work or it just has that annoying side effect of being high. And you get munchies. And if you want to use it recreationally, fine. I'm a libertarian. I think people should be allowed to choose if they want to do that. I don't recommend it. I totally preach a life of sobriety, complete life of sobriety. None of this smoking weed on the weekends nonsense. And but if but legally speaking, in America, I think we should be allowed to do it if we want to, if we want to make that decision. And again, I don't agree with it. But anyway, I don't want to approve people for marijuana cards anymore. So now I'm in a conundrum where I'm thinking, do I actually get on this registry and then take myself off so that I can say I took myself off on my own terms, or do I just leave it where it's at? I think the stoic thing to do is to just leave the situation where it's at, not even apply for it. But I think I've done everything essentially at this point to reverse what had happened to me. And I'm really happy about that. Once you give up drugs and alcohol and you become sober and you are protected against relapse, then the hard work, or maybe not the hard work because it's hard to do that, but more hard work begins. You can be a slave to drugs because they're constantly pulling you back and you value them and you want to be on them. But you can also be a slave to other external things too. People become slaves to wealth. They become slaves to anything that they desire in life that's external to them. And those things, they can be taken away from you. Some people want to have beautiful partners. Some people want to have great reputations and fame. Some people want nice, pretty things, nice cars, things like that. But those things are not permanent. And if those are the things that you want in life, then you're always going to find discontent because those things are going to be able to be taken from you. And you're going to be a slave to those things. they're going to control you. And anyone who can give you access to those things, or who can cause you problems that you fear, they're going to be able to control you as well. So you need to choose whether or not to go all in and free yourself from the desires of for the desires for external things, or be a total slave to those things. I fight this all the time because I like nice cars. And every time I see a nice car, I think, oh, that would be a nice car to have. In fact, ever since I was a little boy, I used to see nice cars and go, that's my car, that's my car. It was like a little game I played when I was like 5 years old. And it kind of stuck with me because I think that's cool. I like those things. And but I have to remind myself, what would it entail? Let's say I was gifted like a Ferrari or something. Because let's face it, that's a nice car. If I had a Ferrari, I would probably really like the thing for like a few rides. And then after that, it would just become another car. And all of a sudden, I've got these extra requirements that come along with the Ferrari. You probably have to get it checked up, at the Ferrari dealership once a year. That's probably going to cost me money. That's going to cost me time. It's got to get the special oil changes. If I'm driving it, I'm going to be worried every time there's a pothole. I'm going to be thinking to myself, oh, geez, there's another pothole. Why can't the state fix this? So it's going to cause me like internal turmoil every time I'm driving the thing. It would probably cause me more problems than actual joy of driving the thing. If I was gifted a Ferrari, the best thing to do would be to sell the thing immediately. Get myself a cheap car that I don't care if it gets a scratch on it. Free myself from the needs of externalities. So think to yourself, what things in life do you desire? And are those things outside your sphere of choice, your mind? Are those things outside your power? Because if they are, then those things control you. And this applies to drugs and alcohol. The reason I'm teaching this stuff in an addiction program, it may seem like it's unrelated, but it's actually extremely related. And the reason is because we tend to relapse when we get anxiety, and when things happen to us that make us get upset. And oftentimes that's because something that's outside of our power, that's outside of our control, happens, and we desire that thing, or we are averse to it and we fear that thing. If you're scared of losing your job and then you lose your job, you're going to want to go home and drink. Drown your sorrows. But if you prepare yourself and you say, I could lose this job one day, and what would I do if that happens? And is that big of a deal? Sure, I might lose a lot of money. I'm going to struggle paying my bills. What am I going to have to do in that situation? And you prepare yourself. And if you really let go of all external things, your house, your family, I'm not saying you can't love your family deeply. That's human nature. You've got to love your family. But if you in a healthy way, detach yourself from needing those things all the time, because your family's out of your control too. Something could happen to them. Then you'll be prepared when if those things happen. And life is long enough that it's not only an if, but it's a when. Any nice possession you've had probably has at some point gone away. And any possession you have now will go away, most likely. And things in the future that you want now, those things are going to be temporary too. Life is just like a river flowing, and the things inside the river that are flowing around you, they just come and go. They float past you in life. There's no need to reach for these things and scream when they float away or when you can't get it. That's ridiculous. Focus on yourself. Focus on what's inside of you, because that's what's truly in your power. Treat everything in life like a friend who's coming to visit you to your home. Eventually, the time comes and the friend's got to go. And that's how it is with all external things. If you can free yourself from desiring those kinds of things, then you can focus on what's inside of you. And start off by the most important thing, which is to not desire drugs and alcohol. Fix your judgments so that you understand how bad these things are for you, how much they control you. They control your judgments, your opinions about things. If you want to have a drink all the time, then the bar is going to look like the greatest place in the world to you. But if you hate drinking, then the bar is going to look like a really lame place to go to. It's the desire for the drinking, it's the alcohol itself, the addiction, that changes your opinions of other things in life. You're not going to want to go on vacation to Canada, hiking in Canada, if you're an alcoholic. But that trip to the all-inclusive resort in the Caribbean, that's going to look like the greatest thing for you. And it's not that those things are great or not. It's that the alcohol itself is shifting your opinion about those things. It just goes to show how affected we are by chemicals. Our brains function through chemicals. It's just an electric signal pathway. And those electric signals are controlled by neurotransmitters and chemicals. And if you alter those chemicals, our entire way of thinking changes. That's why sobriety is so great, because when you're sober long enough, your brain gets back to a balance of neurotransmitters, and all the electrical pathways start to return back to their optimal state again. And not only are you free from addiction and symptoms of withdrawal, but your actual viewpoints start to change about the world, about everything. And you can start to then change and manipulate your viewpoints in a way that aligns them with reality and makes them more healthy. That's when you can really start the important work of changing your thoughts, which then later change your behaviors. And Stoicism helps a lot with that. That's what this is all about. Changing who you are internally. Because if you remain the same person that you were when you first started drinking, then you're always going to relapse, because you're still that same person. But if you finally are able to work on who you are internally, and you change your thoughts and your opinions about things, and you change who you really are from the inside, then you're going to be a different person from who you were when you were drinking, and you're not going to want to do that anymore. You're going to have other priorities in life. And there are so many more important priorities. Call your parents. Get in touch with old friends. Go work out. Make your muscles stronger. Get your body in order. Get your home in order. organize things, clean your life up, both with drugs and alcohol, and literally clean your bathtub for once, mop your floors. These are the types of things where once you start doing them, suddenly you can look around you and say, wow, I actually am a totally different person now, and my life reflects that. If somebody walked into my house right now, they would feel like this is the house of a sober person. This is the house of someone who has their life in order. But you can't get there if you're drinking every day or if you're smoking weed all the time. Look around your house and think to yourself, does this look like the house of a pothead? If somebody walked into here right now, would they think that whoever owns this place smokes weed? If the answer is yes, then you got to get your stuff, you got to get your shit together. You got some more work to do. And we all have work to do, me included, a lot of it. Every day is a challenge because every day we rub shoulders with people that may give us problems and challenge us to behave and treat them continuously in a good, positive way. And we have these challenges every day that we don't hit the mark every time. If this were a dartboard, sometimes I don't even hit the dartboard. I'm hitting the wall. I'm throwing the dart behind me by accident. And that happens to everyone. But every day, like darts, you just keep practicing. And eventually you hit your mark every time whenever a challenge comes. Start by hitting your mark with the challenge of moving away from things that lead you back to your addictions. Because those addictions, they corrupt you internally. Those are the only things that are external to you that can actually affect you on the inside. Your car can't affect you on the inside. I mean, it can if you really desire it. Let's face it. Then all of a sudden you're like, don't touch my car. It's controlling your behaviors. But the drugs do that the most of everything. They control you. It controls you internally like nothing else. All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. And I love you all. And I'll see you tomorrow. Stay sober.